Okay, well, here we are, last day of November, and we are talking about streamlining your business to avoid burnout. I am really excited about this conversation. For anyone who is listening and who doesn't know me, I am Charlotte Rooney. I'm a mindset and burnout coach, and I help purpose-driven professionals to achieve the impact that they are looking for without sacrificing their ambitions or themselves, by using science-backed techniques that allow them to connect to their mind and body. And I am joined today by Charlotte Lester, who is clearly just my spiritual other half. And she's going to introduce herself now, because Charlotte works on the business and operations side, supporting people to also avoid burnout. So Charlotte, yes, introduce yourself for those people who are listening, and then we'll just dive in with the questions.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I'm really, really excited to be here. So I'm Charlotte Lester, and I'm the founder of Burnout Slayer. So I'm a business consultant where I really slay the overload burnout that my clients are generally solo online service providers, where they're just overloaded and just so over it. They just want to get rid of that overload that's causing them to burn out. So I help them to redesign their business so they can operate more efficiently and create the headspace to be able to generate more revenue, increase their profits and restore their energy, and finally work the hours that works around their life, even if they cannot see the wood for the trees currently.
That sounds amazing. And welcome to the people who are just joining us. Pop a little thumbs up with your reaction button to make sure that we know that you can hear us. And Charlotte, tell me more about how is that possible? Because as a solopreneur, if that's a word that you like, or entrepreneur, how do you avoid that overload of just wanting to do and needing to do kind of everything yourself?
Absolutely. So this is something that a lot of people ask me, actually, because especially where we're solopreneurs, because there's a lot of talk around avoiding burnout by delegating. Maybe we'll get on to that a bit later. But there's not so much talk around what the tactics that you can actually use when it is just you. Because let's face it, when we are starting out in business, financially we don't have those funds to be able to support the team, to be able to delegate and have that team support on a month on month basis. So I really focus on the overload burnout, because that's where the solopreneurs are kind of sitting. So they are overloaded, they have too many strategies, and this usually stems from where we start our business, right? We have the impression that we're going to make these sales, and that's our focus. We're going out, we're making the sales, it's working. And then all of a sudden, people say, oh, you should try this strategy. Oh, you should try this. Oh, this is working really well. And what we end up doing is adding on strategies, because strategies we're already doing, right? We never clear them out. We never let go of the old strategies that just aren't working for us anymore, or creating the impact that we want to create. And that's where solopreneurs really kind of sit, because they then become completely enclosed in this bubble of all these strategies, all these things that they need to do and they think they should be doing. And they kind of live in this fear of, well, this has worked for me, so I don't want to let go of those previous things that they were doing, right?
Yeah.
And this is especially true nowadays, where we're living in a 24/7 digital world. Like, there is no switch off. We have to create those boundaries ourselves. And it's being able to really see, okay, what is actually working for me? What is working? Where should my time and my focus be? Because the danger is, when we're taking on all these strategies, we are listening to people that have got like hundreds, if not thousands of team members, right? They've got loads of people that are working within their business, that are supporting their business. And for people that are just starting out or relatively new in the business world, that can be quite intimidating, because we're comparing ourselves to someone that's like miles ahead from where we are currently. So really looking at the strategies that we can use, and actually being realistic with the resources that we have as well, and being able to systemize and being able to really document those processes to understand what is working, because that's something else that people say. Well, how do I know what's working for me? How do I know what I need to let go of? And the only way you're going to be able to know that is by making sure that you're carrying out those processes consistently, day in, day out, or week in, week out, however the frequency goes with that. But really being able to look at, okay, I have carried out this strategy for 90 days, and I've done it consistently. What's been the impact? What results have I got? And if you're not getting the results, being able to say, okay, I'm going to let go of that strategy, or I'm going to adapt that strategy to be able to really get that where I want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on some really, really important things there. I mean, the sort of almost fear-driven approach that a lot of us have when we're starting our business of, I'm not where I should be doing more, I don't know what's working, if I give anything up, I'm going to lose sales, which tends to drive us to take on so much more than we need to. But also that, the really, what's the right word for it, insidious comparing, where you're looking at somebody else in the space and you're thinking that's what I want to be, without actually at all understanding, and like you said, what kind of team have they got behind them? How long have they been doing something? Is it even appropriate for you to be comparing a strategy which works for, in my space, somebody like, Tony Robbins, with what you're doing today? And I think all of those sort of extra pressures that we put on ourselves, quite on top of the fact that being an entrepreneur can be a lot of work, all of that is really, really likely to just increase that risk of burnout.
Absolutely. And in all honesty, that's probably the main problem that I see, is that we are comparing ourselves to people that are just, miles and years ahead of where we are. And it's almost being able to be confident and to be kind of understanding of the fact of where you are in your journey, and appreciating that it's your journey. It's no one else's journey, it's yours, and make it what you want it to be. Because as you said, like Tony Robbins, his version of success could be completely different to what your version of success is. So really looking at what you want from your business journey in order to make sure that you design a business that's going to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody is thinking about wanting to design a business that works for them, you talked about kind of analyzing strategies and finding out what works for them. Like what would you suggest?
Yes, so I would suggest, really depending where they are on that journey. So if I'm kind of thinking about someone that's has not been tracking their metrics, because let's face it, a lot of people don't. So if I'm kind of making a kind of using that as a bit of an example here, that someone that hasn't been tracking their metrics, they haven't got documented processes, everything's in their heads, they're kind of just going along day in, day out, they're getting where they want to be, right? They're being effective, they're achieving their goals, but maybe they're not doing it efficiently, maybe they're not doing it in a way that's reducing that waste and on this constant kind of improvement plan. So it's being able to look at, okay, if I haven't been tracking my metrics, today's the day I'm going to start doing that. Because you want to be making sure that when you're making decisions, to be able to clear out those old strategies, or look at the strategies that you are doing and bring them into more alignment. You want to be making sure that you are doing that based on making fact-based decisions. You're not just making decisions flying by the seat of your pants, as I usually say, because you want to be making sure that you're making the right decision, right? You're making the best decision that you can possibly make, and you can only make those decisions when you have that data, when you have that evidence. And being able to track those metrics, it's also something that I see a lot, is people say, well, what metrics do I track? And that's going to vary, because that varies depending on what's your goal, right? What's your goal in business? What are you trying to achieve from, say, for an example here, your marketing? What do you want to achieve from that? What do you want to achieve from your sales? And that's going to really determine what metrics you then track. Because what I then end up finding is people will listen to kind of, these conversations that we're having, and they'll think, oh, I've got to track my metrics. And they'll just start tracking tons of metrics that they become overwhelmed in data. So it's making sure that you are tracking the metrics that are that are based on where you want to go and where you are now, and being able to see that those metrics are really going to show you where your focus should be.
Yeah. So what are the top 3 metrics that you would typically recommend to someone who is in that space? They come to you, they're feeling overwhelmed, they've got too many strategies going on, they just don't know if they're having the kind of impact that they want. Do you have a couple of sort of short lists that you suggest that people think about to begin with?
Absolutely. So I think as kind of essential one here, marketing 1,000% is essential to any business, because we want to be making sure that we are always filling up that pipeline, right? And keeping our visibility up. So making sure that as part of your marketing, you're tracking where your leads are coming from. So when people are coming through to you, how are they finding you? Because that's going to then determine what's working for you, right? What's working for you from an inbound point of view. So you want to be looking at, maybe if you're bringing your leads into your email list, for example, you want to be making sure that maybe one of the questions that you are asking when they are filling in their details is, where did you find me? Where did you find me? How did you kind of come here? How did you find me here? So being able to make sure that you are tracking that for your inbound. And then also from the sales point of view, again, because I think a lot of people do, especially people earlier on in business, they become overwhelmed, and what they end up doing is relying so much on just the inbound strategies that the outbound stuff kind of really takes a back seat. And that's when they then find that their pipeline's really drying up. So you want to be able to make sure that you are definitely tracking some form of outbound in regards to your sales as well, because we can't just be reliant on, sitting here and everyone's just going to come and join your pipeline. You need to be actively going out there and having those conversations to really keep up that momentum. So making sure that you are then tracking your outbound strategies for sales. So depending on what your strategy is, maybe if you have a DM strategy, for example, so direct message, then you're tracking what are the conversation rates, right? When you're having a conversation with people, are they converting? Are you having conversations with the right people? Where are you finding the people to have the conversations with? And that really kind of will determine your quality of leads as well, because that's equally as important as the quantity. But by tracking those metrics, you are able to see both. You're able to see the quality and also the quantity of people that are coming through.
Yeah, no, I agree. Those things are really, really important for thinking about what's working well in the early stages of your business. So how do that's kind of thinking about the metrics that you might track when you're thinking about like the performance of your business.
Yeah.
What about the performance of you as an entrepreneur? Yeah. Because when we are on our own in business, and I do want to talk later a little bit about like outsourcing and that kind of thing, but how when you're on your own and you're not that stage when you're going to outsource, how do you recommend that people think about tracking their own performance and what's working for them on a personal level?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in business, I think there's such a huge focus on our business goals. What do we want the business to do for us? And in full honesty here, and I think I find this with every client that I've worked with, a client's goals when they first start their business is very different once they have a business that's established, because in all honesty, they don't really know what's going to work from this business, right? They're kind of going into a business and they're learning all the new technology, especially if you're coming, like for me, I was coming from a corporate world. So I was learning how the online world worked, because that wasn't what I was used to. So seeing where you were and then now aligning to, okay, where do I want to be? You can then make the decision. I think I would say after around 18 months of being in business, you will start to really paint a clear picture of what you want from this business. Because if you want to build a business that's there to sell, is going to be very different to if you want a lifestyle business that's there to fund your life. Yeah. So I always like to look at what your business goal is, but then look at, okay, does that align to your personal goals? So what do you want personally from this business? What do you want this business to be able to create for you? And that's where you can really dig deep into and get excited, right? Get excited about this business can actually create this for myself, but making sure that you are looking at, you know, the time that you want to spend in the business. How long do you actually want to be working in your business and, you know, on your business? What does that look like? What's your family life outside? What's your why ultimately? And I know there's a lot of talk about, you know, your why, but it's really, really important to be able to understand how you can align your personal life and your business life together, because ultimately that's what you want. You want them both to work in harmony. So looking at how you can actually create that is going to determine obviously how you can put that into place. But definitely looking at your schedule, looking at the hours that you want to work, what are your boundaries, you know, what are your non-negotiables, what do you have in your personal life that is staying no matter what. So, you know, for an example, for me, it's walking my dogs. I love going for a dog walk in the morning, and that's a non-negotiable for me. And that's why I created the business that I created, because I want that to form part of my daily routine.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so true. I mean, when we talk about entrepreneurship, the prevailing conversation is always around grow, make loads of money, all of that kind of thing. And if that's the goal that you have, then great. I mean, I always think if a goal doesn't feel fun and exciting and like, yes, I am so into making this happen, then it's not the right goal for you. And it's totally fine if your goal is actually, do you know what I want is I want a business where I get to work 10 to 20 hours a week doing something that I love, that helps people, and the rest of the time I can spend with my family, with my dogs, with, you know, my dance troupe, whatever it is. That is also a completely awesome business goal, the same as I want to be the next, you know, startup unicorn that sells for $1 billion. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of think about how do you want to feel in your business, and how can you create that for yourself? How can you give yourself the opportunity to feel excited and in love with your business, rather than, you know, stressed out and overwhelmed by it, which of course is the beginning of the road to burnout, as we both know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's completely it, right? It's your version of success is what you want it to be. And it's, you know, I'm not led by, you know, the materialistic thing, you know, the fancy cars, you know, that doesn't really mean much for me. It's more around the time, the freedom, and the ability to be able to, you know, be present with my children, to go for the dog walk, and to be able to take a day of self-care, right? If I need it, to just be able to say, no, I need a day today, and having that business to be able to create that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very aligned with that myself. One of the key reasons that I set up my business was wanting to be able to put my life first for the first time in my career, you know, having been a humanitarian aid worker and a management consultant, and then, you know, running a startup. My life was always secondary, and that's something that I've really been able to switch around, and it does feel very, very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move on slightly then in our entrepreneurial journey. And I know that, you know, often one of the things that you need to do, or eventually in your entrepreneurial journey, you're probably going to need to outsource some things at some point to get some help, to do the things, and I like to say, to do the things that you just don't love doing, and kind of figuring out some ways of getting help to do that. So how do you help people to really streamline their business to work for them? And how do you help them to think about how and when and what to outsource or streamline or change?
Absolutely. So I may be a bit controversially, but I know people say, you know, outsource before you're ready. And yes, to some extent, there is truth there from my point of view. However, what I found, because I had a business management agency for 6 years, that was my first online business, and I closed the doors to that at Christmas. So I've kind of seen from both angles here. So just to kind of give a bit of context around my opinion and the controversy there.
Oh, we love controversy here, don't worry.
But a lot of the time, what I found was people were, clients were coming to us at the agency and they were on the verge of burnout. They were well and truly onto that journey because they were overwhelmed, they were overloaded. They didn't have the money there to be able to pay for the support, but then equally they had an overloaded business. They had far too much going on that didn't bring that return back. And that really got me thinking, when you always hear this term thrown around, like outsource before you're ready, really got me thinking about the dangers around that, because a lot of the time these clients had tried to outsource, but they just financially could not sustain it. They did not have the resources there to be able to do it. And that was where I really kind of now work with clients to understand where they are now. So understanding, okay, what's working for you, what's not working for you. And I know we've covered a lot of that previously, but being able to document those processes, to create really solid systemized processes that create that consistency, and also be able to track those metrics. Being able to do this prep work before you look to outsource, for me, is absolutely essential, because I guarantee for a lot of people that are feeling overloaded in their business, once they have looked into their business, into those metrics, once they have really let go of those things that aren't working, they will have a lot more headspace there. They will feel a lot lighter, and they may not necessarily need to delegate at that moment in time. Whereas when the business is overloaded, they're in this headspace of, oh, I need to let go of everything. And what they do is they just delegate their overloaded business, right? They just delegate everything that they've got in their business, and without really understanding whether or not that process is bringing them a return. So that's why they end up burning out, because they are paying someone else to do this process. The person's doing the process probably not doing it in the most efficient way. So there's already some waste there when it comes to time, money, and energy. And then there's no return coming back. So you are paying out someone to do something in your business that's just not bringing you that return back financially, or, energetically as well. Because when you don't have documented processes there, you are still very much involved in that process, because, you can't just have something there that's in your head and then just say to someone, this is what I want you to do, and just expect it to be done to the best of the ability, right? Because that person is the only person that can make the decisions in your business is you, and that person will do that task or that process to the best of their ability, but it may not be aligned to you and your vision and what your business stands for. So you want to be making sure that you are very clear with the person that you are going to then outsource to, that you have a documented process that you know is working for you now, and that you are also open to improvements, right? Because they're going to be doing the process. You want to open it up to them. If they feel that there's a easier way, there's a simpler way of doing something, you want them to be able to speak up about that. And you want them to be able to, if they see a new tech tool, for example, that maybe brings the manual labour of that particular task down, you want them to be able to say, how about if we do it this way? And you want to kind of open up those communication gates there to be able to be on this consistent kind of improvement plan with processes. But making sure that you're not over delegating too soon will really help you to not stay stuck. Because when you over delegate, you will be stuck. You will be stuck financially, energetically, and timely too. So making sure that you have all your ducks in a row is super important. You also want to have like a clear picture of the responsibilities of that team member. So what is that team member there to do? Because what a lot of people end up doing, they delegate and then they bottleneck themselves. So they delegate, but then they still have to approve this, or they still have to create part of the process. Make sure that you are delegating the entire process. You don't want to be involved in that process if you can help it. And by doing that, it frees you up completely. Make sure that that person takes full responsibility of that process all the way through from A to Z. And that way, you will see that return come back, because you are not invested in that process anymore. You have completely outsourced that process. But also making sure that you have like a centralized dashboard so you can track the progress of the moving parts, because this is something that happens a lot as well, where people delegate and then they just almost kind of forget about that thing that they've delegated, because they've just handed it off to someone else. Whereas actually making sure that you are tracking the progress, making sure that you are looking at, you know, the return that's coming back from it, because as time goes on, you know, things evolve, and a process that once worked may not work as well anymore, or maybe it just needs some tweaking. You know, we want to be making sure that we are constantly evolving and we're not staying stagnant. So making sure that you are able to track the progress, and making sure that you know exactly where things are at, because you don't want to lose control where you don't understand where, you know, where a particular project is at in that journey,
yeah,
through to completion.
Yeah, so it's kind of a multi-stage process, thinking about the outsourcing.
Yeah.
You know, first, almost like a business audit of going, okay, what is actually in my business that should be stopped?
Absolutely.
What should be delegated and what should be continued? Then making sure that you're really clear on how all of those processes work so that you can properly train somebody else to do them for you. And then also kind of building in that process of monitoring, so that partially, I think, you know, so that you can allay your own fears about letting go of control a little bit, but
Absolutely.
also, as you said, because you're not really letting go of control, you're relating to the work in a really different way when it's been outsourced. So yeah, it's a not a decision to be taken lightly, and I would agree with you. I think that, you know, outsource before you're ready. Maybe in some cases it works well, but I guess it depends on how you're defining that process of ready.
Absolutely, I was just going to say that. What is ready, you know, because that's different to each person, and each person's situation is different, right? And it's really kind of digging into your own personal journey again, just making sure that you're doing what feels right for you.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes left, Charlotte, and before we wrap up, if you had one piece of advice for someone who is starting their own business and really wants to make sure that they avoid burning themselves out as they move towards whatever their goal is, what would be your top tip?
Get comfortable with experimenting, right? Put that scientist hat on, because if you're not always improving, you are falling behind, and now is really not that time to fall behind. So making sure that you are comfortable with change, making sure that you get excited about it, right? You open up these different doors and you kind of let go of that fear of changing something that is working, because, you know, we have to evolve. Our business has to evolve.
Yes, it definitely does. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Charlotte. For people listening, tell me, how can they find you, follow you, work with you?
Yes, so you can find me on LinkedIn as Charlotte Lester, or you can find me over on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm just at Burnout Slayer, and over on my website, so burnout-slayer.com.
Amazing. That sounds absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I know that for some people, the sound has been a little bit difficult today. So I will be sharing a recording with anyone who would like it, in case you weren't able to catch everything that you wanted today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Amazing. Thank you. You too.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.